January 1978. Overnight, the Midwest became a frozen war zone. In Ohio, hurricane-force winds sculpted snow into 25-foot barricades and buried entire highways. So deadly, the government rolled out tanks and declared America's first-ever federal snow disaster. But 2 weeks later, an even greater monster would strike the Northeast, triggering martial law and sealing the Great Blizzard of 1978 as the winter that changed everything. What really happened when winter became a national emergency? Meteorologists called it a bomb cyclone, but in January 1978, most Americans had never heard the term. The science behind the storm was as dramatic as the devastation it would bring. 3 separate weather systems collided over the Midwest, a low-pressure front rising from the Gulf, another sweeping in from the southwest, and a third plunging down from Canada. At the same time, 2 jet streams, one Arctic, one subtropical, merged above the Great Lakes, their combined winds reaching speeds of 150 knots. This rare atmospheric convergence triggered explosive cyclogenesis, causing the barometric pressure to plummet at a rate usually reserved for hurricanes. By dawn on January 26th, Cleveland's barometer had fallen to 28.28 inches, one of the lowest readings ever recorded in the continental United States, outside of a tropical storm. In Mount Clemens, Michigan, the pressure dropped even further, hitting 28.23 inches. Such a rapid drop signaled a storm of historic force. Winds gusted to 100 miles per hour across Ohio, with some reports topping 111 miles per hour. These were hurricane-force wind, but instead of rain, they hurled snow and ice across the land. Snow did not simply fall, it blasted sideways, sculpted by wind into drifts as high as 25 feet. In places like Muskegon, Michigan, over 4 feet of snow piled up in less than 4 days, fueled by lake-effect squalls. Wind chills plunged to minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit, freezing exposed skin in minutes. Roads vanished under white waves, and entire towns disappeared behind walls of blowing snow. The energy behind this storm was staggering, its mechanics unlike anything most forecasters had ever encountered. What began as numbers on a weather map would soon become a full-scale crisis. The science was settled. A record-setting bomb cyclone had been unleashed on the Midwest, and nothing would stop it now. Ohio woke to a world transformed. Roads that had been busy the day before vanished under mountains of snow. The Ohio Turnpike, once a lifeline for cross-state travel, became a graveyard of abandoned cars, some buried so deep only their antennas poked through the drifts. For thousands trapped in their vehicles, rescue was a distant hope. Some waited more than 24 hours, burning precious fuel to stay warm, while others, desperate for help, left their cars and set out on foot into the blinding white. Not all of them made it. Across the state, power lines snapped under the weight of ice and wind. Entire neighborhoods went dark and cold. Families huddled together in living rooms, feeding wood stoves with whatever they could find. Old chairs, broken dressers, even kitchen cabinets. In rural homes, the cold crept in quickly. One woman, stranded by impassable roads, delivered her baby at home, with only her husband and a neighbor to help. The nearest ambulance was miles away, blocked by drifts higher than the hood of a truck. Farms suffered their own tragedies. Cattle, cut off from barns by walls of snow, froze before help could reach them. In towns like Dayton and Toledo, children waited by frosted windows for fathers who never came home from work. Stranded somewhere out on the turnpike or in city offices turned into makeshift shelters. Grocery shelves emptied within hours. Gas stations ran dry. Pipes burst in the cold, flooding basements with ice water. The scale of the emergency forced the governor to call up more than 5,000 members of the Ohio National Guard. Tanks and tracked vehicles rolled through the suburbs, rescuing the stranded and delivering food to isolated families. Helicopters flew 2,700 sorties, lowering baskets of supplies and lifting the sick to safety. For the first time in history, the federal government declared all of Ohio a disaster area because of snow. 51 lives were lost in the storm, each a reminder of how quickly winter could turn deadly, even in the heart of America. Snow began falling on the northeast just after dawn, and it did not stop for 33 hours. In Boston, the city's official total reached 27 inches, while Providence recorded 28, both numbers that would set all-time records. But the story was not just the depth, it was the relentless pace. Hour after hour, the flakes kept coming, thickening the air, swallowing streets, and erasing landmarks. Gusts blasted the coastline at up to 79 miles per hour, whipping the snow into white curtains and driving it into every crevice. Along the shore, the storm's timing collided with high tide. Massive waves, pushed by the wind, surged over seawalls and poured into neighborhoods from Massachusetts to New Jersey. Saltwater flooded basements, snapped power lines, and left entire communities cut off behind walls of ice and drifts. In some towns, snow piled so high that first-floor windows disappeared beneath the drifts. The storm's power was not just in what it left behind, but how it arrived, unbroken, unstoppable, and utterly indifferent to the world it buried. Governor J. Joseph Garrahy signed the emergency order as snow continued to fall, closing every road in Rhode Island to civilian traffic. The language was clear. Only emergency vehicles could move. For the first time, a New England state imposed a road ban so strict it felt like martial law. State police set up checkpoints on highways and city streets, while National Guard units in full uniform patrolled neighborhoods and business districts. Humvees and military trucks became the only vehicles cutting through the silence, their drivers tasked with enforcing the ban and searching for those in need. On Route 128, outside Boston, thousands of commuters found themselves trapped as the storm intensified. The highway, usually a river of headlights, became a frozen parking lot. Some drivers spent 2 nights in their cars, running engines sparingly to conserve gas and heat. Others abandoned their vehicles and set out on foot, wading through waist-high drifts toward distant hotels or the faint glow of restaurant signs. Makeshift shelters sprang up wherever people could find warmth. Crowded diners, office lobbies, even the booths of Howard Johnson's. Strangers shared food, blankets, and stories, bound together by the simple need to survive the night. For many, the world outside had vanished, replaced by a white silence broken only by the distant rumble of guard convoys and the crackle of emergency radio. The sense of isolation was total, enforced not just by nature but by law, and the hardship of those days would leave a mark long after the snow melted. More than 100 Americans lost their lives to the storms of 1978. The causes were as relentless as the weather itself. Some froze in stranded cars, waiting for help that never came. Others collapsed while shoveling snow, their hearts giving out under the weight and cold. Power failures left entire neighborhoods without heat, and makeshift attempts to stay warm, like running engines or lighting fires indoors, led to deadly carbon monoxide poisoning and house fires. Roofs buckled under the snow's weight, trapping families inside. In rural areas, isolation turned dangerous as medical emergencies went unanswered and supplies ran out. Each death was sudden, often senseless, and always a blow to families and communities already pushed to their limits. The storm's toll was measured not just in inches or dollars, but in the empty chairs left behind. In neighborhoods buried under snow, help often arrived not from officials, but from ordinary people with extraordinary resolve. Snowmobile clubs became lifelines, their riders ferrying doctors and nurses to hospitals when ambulances could not pass. In Ohio alone, hundreds of volunteers answered calls for help, braving whiteout conditions to deliver medicine, food, and hope. When phone lines snapped under the weight of ice, ham radio operators filled the silence, patching together a network of more than 1,000 contacts across counties, keeping families and emergency crews connected. Churches and schools opened their doors as warming centers, offering shelter to strangers. The storm's devastation ran into the hundreds of millions, but what endured was a sense of unity. Out of hardship came progress, New warning systems, upgraded snow removal fleets, and the adoption of satellite forecasting, all shaped by the lessons of 1978. That winter became the standard by which every blizzard since has been measured. Today, as storms grow stronger and winters less predictable, the blizzard's lessons echo louder. Emergency planning and community resolve, forged in 1978, still shape how America faces the unexpected. Memory is more than nostalgia. It's our warning, our blueprint, and our promise to endure. Share your story below.